How to install the power cable. The Swan grinder incorporates a universal style of power inlet. When first setting up the grinder, it will need to be installed by tilting the grinder on its side. Make sure that the orientation of the cable is correct, and then insert it into the bottom of the grinder. There's a locking clip that holds the cable in place. In this position, you can also see the power switch under the right side of the grinder that is used to turn it on and off. When finished, tilt the grinder back into the upright position and plug the other end of the power cable into the appropriate power receptacle. How to install and remove the hopper. The Swan's hopper features an easy open and close feature used when installing or removing the hopper. To install the hopper, place the hopper in the appropriate spot on top of the grinder. Rotate the collar to lock the hopper in place and open the grinding chute. Slide the lids open and then add coffee. To remove the hopper, rotate the collar in the opposite direction until closed, and then remove the hopper from the Swan grinder. You will notice that the chute closed when rotating the collar, ensuring that the coffee does not spill when the hopper is removed. How to adjust the portafilter fork. The Swan features a portafilter holder that will adapt to hold many different sizes of portafilters. The buttonless detection option also allows the portafilter itself to actuate the grinder by making electrical contact between both sides of the portafilter fork. To adjust it to fit your portafilter, loosen the thumb screws on both sides of the fork. Insert your portafilter and hold it in place while adjusting the top side of the portafilter holder. Tighten the thumb screws to lock the position in place. How to turn on the grinder. The grinder can be turned on using its power switch, located underneath the grinder on the right side. When turning the grinder on, it will display its firmware version, as well as the grinder's serial number. When first turning the grinder on, it will enter a drying period during which any excessive moisture is removed from the anti-static chamber. This is needed to ensure that the grinder operates properly and takes 10 minutes. This is only required when the grinder is initially turned on and isn't required if the grinder is briefly turned off. How to grind coffee. The Swan can be used in two different ways: by using the buttons to begin grinding, or by sensing when the portafilter is placed in the grinder to begin grinding. By default, the grinder is set to use the buttons. The first button corresponds to dose number 1, and the second corresponds to dose number 2. The third button corresponds to more, which allows you to add a small amount of coffee if you need to slightly adjust the dose. To begin grinding, set the portafilter in the grinder and press your desired dose button. We'll cover instructions on setting the grinder in portafilter actuation mode later. However, in portafilter actuation mode, you set your desired dose before inserting the portafilter. Then, when the portafilter is placed in the grinder, it will automatically begin grinding your selected dose. How to adjust the grind size. The granulometry, or size of the grind, is easily adjusted via a knob on either side of the grinder. This allows ambidextrous adjustment of the grind size. To change it, rotate the knob. As you rotate the knob, you will notice the number displayed on the gauge on the front of the grinder change. This allows for easy and intuitive adjustments with clear feedback from the grinder. A larger number equates to a larger or more coarse grind size, while a smaller number equates to a smaller or more fine grind size. How to adjust the dose. The advanced motor controller used in the Swan allows for control of the dose using the number of revolutions of the burrs down to a resolution of 1 decimal place. Controlling the dose by the number of revolutions allows for extremely accurate control over the 2 programmable doses. To change the programmed dose, press and hold the button corresponding to the dose you wish to change. After several seconds, you'll see the display change, allowing you to increase or decrease the dose with the first 2 buttons. After changing the dose, simultaneously press and hold the first and second buttons to exit the menu. If you only use 1 dose, you can leave the grinder in the dose adjustment mode for instant access to grind adjustments. How to adjust the chute position. The Swan's chute can be adjusted to center the coffee in the portafilter during grinding. To begin, loosen the thumb screws and remove the chute by pulling down. Next, use a screwdriver to loosen the screw that locks the chute into position. Adjust the chute to its new position and then tighten the screw to lock it back into place. Then place the chute back onto the grinder and tighten the thumb screws. When finished, grind some coffee to be sure that it's centered in the portafilter basket. Navigating the menu. To access the settings menu, simultaneously press and hold button 1 and button 2. After several seconds, the display will show the settings menu. You can use the first two buttons to scroll forward and backward through the settings menu, or press the third button to exit the menu. Grind Width setting. The grind width setting allows us to change between the two actuation modes, buttons or portafilter. When set to buttons, the grinder is instructed to begin grinding when one of the dose buttons is pressed. Portafilter mode uses the electrical conductivity of the portafilter itself to sense when a connection is made across the two forks of the portafilter support, and will begin grinding using the selected dose when the portafilter is placed in the grinder. Dose settings. The dose settings allow us to change both the programmed dose as well as the speed at which the burrs spin for each dose. You can change the dose here by pressing the third button when highlighted, and then using the first two buttons to increase or decrease the dose. The third button will save the dose and exit the adjustment menu. Scrolling to the speed option and pressing the third button will allow us to change the speed at which the burrs spin for the selected dose. This allows us to select between low, medium, and high speeds. If desired, the doses can be set at individual speeds. B3 More allows us to change the number of revolutions used with the third button. This allows us to fine-tune how much coffee we want to dispense if we need to adjust the dose slightly. Cleaning. The Swan is easy to clean, with quick access to the top and bottom of the burrs. To begin, first remove the hopper by rotating the cowler until the coffee chute is closed, and then remove it and set it aside. Next, the slide and chute cone can be removed by loosening the thumb screws on the lower side of the grinder, and then removing both the slide and the chute cone. Finally, the wiping ring assembly can be easily removed with its magnetic attachment. Pay special attention to be sure that the rubber wipers in the wiping ring are present, as they are required for the grinder to function properly. At this point, you can use the included silicone brush to clean the burrs and vacuum any residual coffee that is left. Once finished, replace the wiping ring, chute cone, and slide. After installing the hopper and rotating the cowler into position, the grinder is ready for use.